So yeah, I guess from the off, just to kick our listeners off, it'd be great if you could take us through the early days of Irene, where you started in life, your earlier career as a development engineer at ExoLaunch, and how that whole journey navigated you through to becoming co-founder and CEO today of NeuroSpace.
So very, very early when I was young, as a child, I always dreamed of science fiction, space. Was a huge space enthusiast, and wanted to build technology. I loved electronics, and I was 8 years old when someone was repairing our radio, and I saw this green PCB with the parts on it, and I was so fascinated. And at that moment, I decided I want to understand this. I want to do this later on. And always repaired at home when something was there. I just took the tools from my dad and started to repair stuff. And this went even unto the high degrees of my school. And when I was about to study, I didn't even know what to study. I was like everything, even arts. And I was so lazy in school. I got so spoiled because everyone was so nice to me. Even the teachers loved me, but they were like, none of them had any great expectations. Like, okay, she's cute, but maybe not smart. I don't know. And I was really lazy because I was just enjoying all the attention and things. And then when I was then about to study, I was discussing with my sister while I was repairing a video recorder and discuss like, what can I do? And she was like, why don't you study this? It's like, what? Electrical engineering.
Yeah.
Yeah, why not? And then we just went. The next day we went to the university and I wrote, and it was possible to get into the studies. So I did it. And after the studies, I knew I wanted to go to space, but it was so hard because I took way too long for my studies and it was so hard, engineering. I was not very good in school, as mentioned, so very average or even low. But somehow I managed my studies with extremely high marks at the end. And I studied RF technology, microwave technology, semiconductors, and photovoltaics. These were like my major subjects. And it's a very hard subjects. And I wanted to study this. I didn't want to become a lazy engineer with very easy engineering background. I wanted to understand this hard stuff. And so I did it. And then when I finished, I was like, what can I do? I applied for random companies and saw in the university there was a sheet where there was this Soyuz rocket on it. And I was like, what is this? Why is there a rocket on it? And I was like taking it off. And then someone was looking for an engineer, an electrical engineer with basically my skills in these subjects. And I was calling, and then at the first they didn't even had any opportunity left anymore because this was actually outdated. But I was like, but isn't there a possibility? And can I apply later? And it's like, okay, in a few months you can call me back. And this was Dima, so Dimitri Sternhardt for an ExoLaunch. And then when I was there, later on, and yes, it somehow was possible. They again were looking for someone. And then I was there, and during the interview, they were explaining, and I didn't know what was coming here because we are in Berlin, no space, nothing about. I didn't know about this space environment here at that time, so I didn't expect a lot, except like building some kind of device. And then suddenly they were talking like, and then you have to build that and the simulator for the Soyuz, and at the end you have to go there and test it directly in the rocket. And I was like, are they talking about the Soyuz rocket? Kazakhstan? Baikonur? I should go to Baikonur. Like, I would have done for free. But it was like, oh, they're paying me for it. And so, yes, and it was so great how Dima was explaining it. Irene, you have to, then it is a very hard trip to get to Baikonur. You have to first travel with an airplane to Moscow, and then you have to get into something which looks like a plane.
Yeah.
But it will bring you there. It will bring you there. And it was a tupolev, actually. So great. And yes, we went there finally and went to Baikonur, and I had the opportunity to test it in the Soyuz rocket. Such an enjoyable job. And so yeah, and then after this I worked there for 5 years, did all the electronics and development, and was one of the first engineers there. But then after 5 years, I wanted to see something new. So I had this offer from an aviation company. So I took that. But I was also having in mind building my own company. So I also have founded NeuroSpace and had two jobs at that moment in parallel. And after 2.5 years of this aviation company, where I had like several projects, which I had I was a project manager and so on, like within 2.5 years, and didn't sleep a lot because I had NeuroSpace. And finally, at the end of 23, I had to go to my boss from FTI and tell him, sorry, I need to quit because my company has meanwhile 11 employees. So it was like, okay. But we are still very good in contact, and we really like, he was never bad and about this. So yeah, he still supports me.
Oh, amazing. That's great to hear. And what do NeuroSpace do? How do you fit into the space ecosystem, and where do you see the company sort of going and developing over the next few years?
Well, what for us it was like most of my engineers worked at ExoLaunch, so the core team. They worked, and they were basically the first employees. We had this other company, German Opto Systems, as well, with building satellites. And so, and I had the opportunity, like 1 or 2 years after I have founded NeuroSpace, to get these engineers back on board. They were at that time working on different companies, other companies already. And then I told them, but I have NeuroSpace and let's again do some space technology, and let's do something totally different. So we were brainstorming and had the idea, okay, we don't want to build rockets anymore. We don't want to build CubeSats anymore. We want to make CubeSats maybe reusable, or why not? And what's going on actually? And then we figured out with the moon and everything which is now happening. And then we had the idea, okay, let's do something for rovers. But then we figured out that we didn't find the right platform for rovers. So we decided to do our own platform. So this is why we ended up with this. And we are quite proud of what we meanwhile have achieved. Actually, the system works very flawlessly. And yes, of course, I have a brilliant team. They're so great. Love working with them.
Good. And what's your thoughts, I guess, on the kind of the space exploration industry as it refers specifically to lunar rovers? Like, how do you see lunar rovers kind of developing and evolving over the next few years, and what sort of role do you see NeuroSpace playing in that evolution?
So our clear vision, actually, coming back to Lunar, and so the whole lunar economy, it's more like, actually, why do we want to go to the Mars? Because we want to reach. Why do we want to go to the moon? Because we want to reach Mars. But to get there is way more complicated than choosing the moon, which is on the way, which we can actually reach within a few days. And while for Mars, you need to prepare so much. You need these huge launch vehicles, and you have to bring everything. And yes, so the moon is very attractive as a as a gateway. So when you reach the moon, you can set up a base camp on the moon. You have low gravity, so leaving moon is quite easy compared to Earth. Of course, it has way more other problems with the day-night shift, and like 14 days of days and 14 days of night. In the equator region, of course, it changed from South Pole to North Pole and so on, but it has such a harsh environment. But on the other hand, it does have a lot of benefits, like in case there is enough water oxygen, which is extremely important, which you don't have that easily on Mars, for example. So if you want to reach Mars, then it's always good to stop on the moon and then to get everything from there, mine it from there, and then it's way more easy, less fuel to get then to the Mars or anywhere else, even some total different direction. And so I think that's why moon became more and more attractive. And if you see what happened in history, it was like it was very political. Two parties like Russia and America, but then now even since 2000 on, it has totally changed. And one reason for this is this new space approach with CubeSats, this affordable technology, how you can use COTS components and makes everything cheaper and affordable. And now so many parties are meanwhile dealing with space compared to the early days, which space technology was very elite technology. Not many companies could afford it, and not many countries could afford it. And meanwhile, even small countries now can say they have at least a CubeSat in space. So that's what they call it, democratization of space. So it became closer to everyone. Even universities can launch satellites. And this approach can be also taken to exploration and all these things, makes it more affordable.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess now that you've been since the early days and going to ExoLaunch and now finding your own company, now that you've been in the space industry and actually immersed in it for so many years, what is it you've come to love most about the space sector?
Oh, wow. I think it's because this exploration, like going somewhere where no one was before. And for me, it's also like Moon or Mars. It's like a planet which is actually without life, and to create life somewhere where life was not possible. So, and create a second home for mankind or another station, and let's make science fiction reality. This is like so great. Instead of like making war or something, there is a huge territory actually around us. So let's explore it and create something instead of destroying. So this made space for me so attractive, and also like being into this very modern way of technology, realizing high tech and developing something which is absolutely new. This is, I don't know, fantastic actually.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And how I guess one of the main motivations why we started this podcast is to try and inspire more young Irenes. How do we get the next generation more interested? I don't think interest is the problem. I think it's the accessibility, and I think it's the perception of space. Even now, I mean, I've only been doing this for like 7 years now, but still now, when I talk to friends and family, as soon as I mention space, the perception is like astronauts, rocket scientists, and that's about it. So what do you feel we could and should be doing, like in schools and colleges and stuff like that, to try and make space more accessible for the next generation? It's not all astronauts, it's not all rocket scientists, to try and inspire them?
I think the thing is that you have to bring it more closer to them, that they have to develop a kind of understanding for the technology and why there is this existence of space technology. What is the benefit for humans actually? And when you are into the subject, you really know how important it is, and how actually the whole global economy is meanwhile dependent on space technology. It's not only all these satellite constellation that they do Earth observation or something. It's actually like they provide a huge amount of data. It's not just weather or something, but it's like so precise information about regular everyday life. And it's been used from so many utility services, for example, to keep up the whole maintenance of huge ecosystem. Even the clock, which gets synchronized by satellites. Otherwise, around the globe, we wouldn't have the same time or synchronized clocks running or something like. And like there are actually so many benefits, and if that above us won't work properly, then we are all in a huge trouble, actually. And something like this has to be explained from the beginning on, the meaning of space technology, actually, and how dependent we are. And it's like the whole communication, of course, and media and so on, but also how important it is also to keep it up, and how fragile it is also, how easily things can get destroyed, and how important laws and rules and regulation are here. And yes, like paying respect to all these things, I think it's extremely important.
I think it's about making it relatable to them, isn't it? If you start talking about rockets into space, you'll probably lose them. But if you talk about things like what you've just said there, Wi-Fi connectivity, and maybe even things like Uber technically leverages space technology to use the app. That's something they probably know and they're used to and stuff. So couldn't agree more. And I guess keeping on that kind of theme of the younger generation, there's so much social media now that the younger generation sees, and I think it's all very much like celebrating success, and it's kind of like a highlight reel of success. And I think the younger generation see that, but they don't necessarily see all of like the hard work, all of the sacrifice, all of the painful moments that lead up to being a senior person or founding your own company. So what would you say along your career, building NeuroSpace, and even in your earlier career, what would you say are the most valuable lessons that you've learned so far along the way?
I have to distinguish here as like basically as a founder itself, which is even hard. Then also going into this deep tech, like very hard technology. Then there is this other thing, because I'm a woman, and this makes it even more difficult, everything. So you have a lot of, I won't call it problems, more challenges, actually. How you have to deal with it. So what happened during my school time, I got spoiled because I'm a cute girl. It would go on in the business life as well. I'm not a very tall person, so it's still like you've been treated like, oh yeah, whatever. And so on. But then you have to learn to be strong to handle all these things. Like females often get raised to be perfect, to be friendly to everyone, and so on. And I was so friendly and so kind. But after becoming a founder, and also in between, I learned that it's so important to be strong, and that you have to show your clear statements, and you have to argue with people, and it's okay if they don't like you. Because it's about what you need to at the end realize to finish things or whatever. And it's about huge responsibilities, especially if you have people, you have to pay for them and all these things. And if you are too soft, then you are very much in danger, or you might create problems and all these things. So you have to be very clear in your mind. You have to be careful, but you have to accept that not everyone is going to like you. And I think these are the most important things, which is even for males or females the same, actually. But as a female, you realize it's like even harder, because people have prejudice, people have expectations, and then it's like, oh, she's so mean. And it's like, I don't know, you have to be careful that they don't take it in the wrong direction. But if man reacts that way, that hard, that's okay, he's wrong. So I think these are the challenges, and what I can always say is to prepare, to learn a lot. You have to understand what you're doing, not just read about it or something. You need to understand and understand all the problems. And you have to understand business, especially. This was like a problem for me. I was an engineer, so learning the business part, and meanwhile ending up doing mainly business stuff and no more engineering, which I really love.
Yeah.
That's also something which you have to accept then. And therefore, I can always recommend everyone who's about to become a founder or something, do your business homeworks. There is a lot of help, a lot of incubation programs or whatever, and take them from the beginning. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And on that, continuing on that journey of a founder, I think what you said there is amazing. What do you feel? What do you think makes a strong working culture? If you could take like the kind of the core ingredients to make a strong work culture, what does that look like?
So here I would example-wise take my team, for example.
Yeah.
Of course, more of my most of my core teams I know for meanwhile 10 years or even longer. So with my founder Oliver, he does the legal part here. We went to school together. But
Oh
the
wow.
thing is, you have to have people on board which you can completely trust and who believe and trust in you as well. This is something, this is actually for me the only way how things work,
Yeah.
because sometimes you have to do hard decisions, which is very hard for the others to understand, but still they would accept because they can trust you and they are aware of that. Okay, she knows what she's doing now, even though I don't like it, but
Yeah.
I will accept it and I will respect it. And I think this is the most important things, people who respect you, and you have to respect them as well, and you have to show it every time. And a lot of talking together, not just like, okay, he's my employee, but I don't care about his private life. It's everything is like a family, and it has to
Yeah.
become close enough, especially. And yeah, and with this, if you have things like this, and most of the things work more easily, because as a leader, it's always about um, convincing people. It's not ruling them. It's like you have to catch them, you have to
Yeah.
tell them about your ideas, and they should like it, and they want to do it because they like it and not because you ordered them to do it.
Yeah.
And this is something which we have here, and which is really pleasant, that at any time anyone can come in and talk and discuss with me, or with one of the other chief engineers, or we can just go out together, what we also do in regular terms, and so that we have a kind of also friendship and trust and not just work. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And you've actually mentioned it once or twice there when you were talking earlier about the incubating things and the support of other people to try and transition from the kind of the technical engineering world into the business world. And one of the constant themes I've encountered doing these podcasts is the importance of having good mentors throughout your career, and
That's
it
true.
can be it's kind of, I guess, seasonal throughout different stages of your life. But I also think when we talk about it, it sounds like such an obvious thing. But I think again, people listening to this that are maybe wanting to get into space, maybe the younger generation, all that kind of stuff. I think a lot of people don't really know where to start with that, actually going out there and finding a good mentor. So what would you say, how would people go about identifying a mentor and sort of building that relationship, and what do you think significance and importance that can have on their career and development?
I think the most important thing also here is respect. If you respect someone
Yeah.
and you see that he's respecting you as well, this might be a great candidate as a mentor. So one of my first mentor was a professor at a university, who was then trying to support me, because at that time I was not doing very well at the university and had a very hard time. And he was like, I even failed in his examination, by the way. And he was like, I can see that you are actually a very smart person, but there is something, you have to solve your problems, and I think you need someone who is a bit guiding you. So I would offer you to work in my company, and in this huge institute, by the way. It's a very large semiconductor institute. So you have a stable job and an income, but therefore, we have to make sure that you manage your studies. And when I was signing the contract, he was like, okay, Irene. And I just want to tell you one thing. Sometimes there are days where you don't feel very good and you want to just not go to work or whatever, just stay at home. So if you have one of those days, promise me that you will not come to work, but you will never quit university. So university is priority number one. And this was so great, always like having someone who has this in mind, and it can be a professor, former teacher. And for me, it was also my boss from both. Actually, Dima is a quite wonderful guy from ExoLaunch. And we still talk together or meet, and also my boss from FTI, we still meet, and they are also kind of mentor for me still. They know what I have achieved and they respect it, and I can also ask them for help or whatever. And also in your family backgrounds, even people who have retired, because their knowledge is not out of their head. So if you know someone who was working at a big company before, this would be a great mentor because they have time for you, and they are willing to help. And so, of course, and you definitely need people to talk about, who are way more ahead in all these things and experience. So yes, I can definitely always say, try to find some mentors, or even in close relationship, but also at university or even in work environment.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. And I guess the final question for me today is all the lessons that you've learned throughout your career. If you could kind of distill all of that information down into one piece of advice for people that are listening to this podcast, looking from the outside in and wanting to get into space, but think it's maybe outside of their reach and it's just not a possibility, what advice would you give to those people?
And do your homeworks. Prepare a lot. You need to 100% know what you are going to do. You have to know the technological part, and you have to know everything about the business and the market you're going to hit in. So these are the important things.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Excellent. Fantastic. Irene, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been great. I can't wait for you to see the finished article. Once it's done, I'll send it over to you to have a look. Have a great rest of your week, and I look forward to speaking to you soon. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I really enjoyed.
Thank you, Irene.
Bye.
Cheers. Bye.